So to work on the styling here, in the end we need to go into the goal input component. There we have this modal, and in the modal we have this view, which in the end is responsible for controlling how the text input and button are displayed. Now I want to change the overall look. I now want to have the button beneath the text input, and I want to have another button in addition to add goal, because that other button should allow us to close that modal. Now to achieve this, I will restructure this a bit, and I will actually add another view in here below the text input and move my button into this view and add another button here with a title of cancel, so that I can add the goal or cancel adding. And this should in the future close my modal. At the moment it won't do anything though. Now with that we got that view in a view, but now I want to change the styles of that outer view, which is the main view inside the modal, because it's the first element in the modal, the topmost element in the modal. And on this input container, I want to use flex 1 so that it takes all the available space in the modal, but I want to change the flex direction back to column. And therefore we can actually also remove it because that's the default anyways. With this, if I save this, the buttons are now below the text input, but they're totally stretched out because we have space between for justify content. This should instead be center to make sure that all the content is centered. This now looks way better. Now, in addition, these two buttons should be next to each other. And therefore, I added this view around the buttons, and I will give this view some styling. So here, maybe at the bottom, I'll add my button container object and actually give this a flex direction of row so that the two buttons are next to each other. And then add this button container on this view. So here I'll add a style, which is styles.buttonContainer. With that, the buttons do sit next to each other. Now it would be nice if the buttons had maybe a fixed width and some spacing between them. And to achieve this, since I can't style these buttons since they're built in, and since I don't want to build my own button, which we could do, but which is some extra work, I will actually wrap each button into a view as well, because then I can style that view instead of the button, and therefore still influence the look of the button a bit. So here I will assign a style property to those views here, and set up a dedicated styling object for those buttons. I'll name the style object button, and for every button here, I'll just make sure that it takes, let's say, 40% of the available width. And then we might want to add a margin horizontal, so margin left and right, of 8 pixels, so that we have some spacing between the buttons. And it's now this button style here, which I want to add to the views that hold the buttons. And that's a quick and easy way of setting my own styles to the buttons, even though I can't change the button style itself. But you can change the width or height with that. You can add margins between them. You wouldn't be able to change the color or text color though. If that was your plan, you would have to build your own button. And in general, if you need more adjustments, you might want to build your own button by using the pressable component. But this is good enough for now, and it gives me these equal sized buttons below the text input. I also want to have some spacing between the text inputs and the buttons. And maybe we can shrink them a little bit. So to shrink them, I'll change the width to 30% here. Or we set this to a fixed pixel width of 100, for example, like this. And for the spacing between the text input and the buttons on the button container, I will add a margin top of, let's say, 8 or maybe 16. So now if I save this, there is some distance between the buttons and the text input above the buttons. The text input now also can become wider, so I will set the width of the text input to 100%. With that, I reloaded the app in between, so I will reopen this. This is now wider. Now, it would still be nice to have some area around that which is not occupied. And therefore, on the overall container, which is that root view in the modal, I will add a little bit of padding in all directions, and let's say add 16 pixels of padding. And now I'd say this doesn't look too bad. Last but not least, we still have some extra spacing to the right of the text input because we had a margin to the right, and I want to get rid of that as well. So now this does look quite good, and of course you can adjust this a bit further if you want to. Now I want to make sure that the modal closes whenever we cancel or click add goal though, because at the moment that's not happening.